I call this meeting at 6:10. May I please have the clerk conduct a roll call and confirm that we have quorum? Elena Padilla Macias, Lizbeth Diaz, Lee Haradi, Alex Lujan, Davina Madan,
Here.
Ruby Garcia, Ashlyn Batista, Daniel Perez, Jennifer Ruiz, Christina Rodriguez,
Here.
Rachel Alarcon, Katie Johnson, Sadine Al Fakir,
Here.
Nelly Zapata Castillo, Faisal El Khoury,
Here.
Daniel Stengang,
Present.
Cameron Edifa,
Here.
Minju Kim,
Here.
Zaid Azam,
Here.
Sam Helvig,
Here.
Amrutha Velavelli, Erica Yu,
Here.
Avantika Ramasamy,
Here.
Jonah Kravitz,
Here.
Leslie Vallejo Avila, Dana Huang,
Here.
Rishi Alamardi, Jacob Huang,
Here.
Eduardo Tapia Jr. Bieta, Denisha McCadney, William Maheen.
Here.
I have 17 out of 31 present. All right, we got
Point of inquiry. Do we have quorum for a mandated reserve poll right now?
Nope. But woohoo, we have quorum so that we can do the Senate meeting. We will now proceed with today's business. I'll now open it up for public input. During public input, I invite members of the public who wish to speak for up to 3 minutes to address the AS on any issue relating to higher education or items on the order of business. So for those who would like to speak for public input, please raise your hand. What's your name? You can go, sorry. All right, you have the floor.
Cool. Thank you. My name is Xavier. I'm a first year here at UCSD. I'm here today representing an organization we have called CalPERG on campus. We are like an activist group that works towards just getting students to make the change they want to see in the world through like political advocacy and just community outreach and whatnot. So I was here last week. I was talking about how our organization is hoping to have more of a connection with like our student body and just like the bigger leaders on campus. So, I'm going to be doing these public comments every now and then just to give like updates on our organization. Last week we were able to, last week we had this big event called Oceans Day. It was a statewide event where we sent 4 students here from UCSD to the state capitol in Sacramento. And there, those students worked with a bunch of other organizations to lobby 80 state representatives that, cared about protecting our oceans by passing our lead campaign, the Protect Our Oceans campaign. We're trying to increase the number of marine protected areas in the state of California. Along with that, last week we had a petition tabling event on Thursday. We were able to get 100 petitions in just, I believe, like 4 hours, putting us at a total of 600 petitions through just like this quarter alone. This is in support of this other campaign we're running, the Make Polluters Pay campaign, where we're trying to create a big super fund to support families affected by big climate disasters like the LA wildfires that we recently had. And that would be funded by a lot of the big polluters in the state of California. And then, just as like an action item, next week we're going to be having our clothing drive from Tuesday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And it'd be really cool if you guys could like come out, maybe donate, or even just come and talk to us. Just because, it'd be really nice to see our campus leaders contribute to helping their community. So thank you guys for your time. Awesome.
All right, next is Mr. Dixit.
Hello, guys. My name is Aryan Dixit. I'm the president of the Student Civil Liberties Union on this campus. I'm here for two reasons today. So I'll start firstly with why I'm particularly here for public input. So our organization has been working with a patchwork of various other student organizations and faculty groups across the University of California system to present a letter supporting free speech and immigration and immigrant rights on the UC campuses, especially for undocumented students and international students. And we've gotten over 80 organizations and 600 or so individuals from across these campuses to sign on to this letter of ours. And some of these organizations have also included student governments, such as at UCSC. And I'm just saying that although the ability for this associated students to sign that letter has passed, I would like to invite y'all to show up and basically talk, maybe listen in to the Regents meeting tomorrow, where we will be coordinating with the remaining 70 or so organizations to speak about this issue at the UC Regents. Furthermore, I'm here to hopefully present to you work that the disability justice alliances and organizations on this campus have been working towards, and potentially the ideas and challenges that we've faced in creating a disabled students resource center on this campus, and how y'all could be able to help with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixit. Anyone else would like to speak from the public? All right, looks like we have no more people in the public who would like to speak. I'll now close public input and move on to our next item. I will now entertain a motion to adopt today's order of business. Is there a motion to adopt? Okay, now that has been properly motioned and seconded, are there any changes to?
I motion to add in special presentations, a new one titled SDLU, the Disabled Students Resource Center, and I will put it in the Slack channel or the Senate.
All right, are there any objections to this? No, all right. If there's no objections, we will need to vote on it. Are there any other changes to be made to the order of business? All right, it looks like we have no other changes. All right. All right, I totally forgot we had changes in rules. Every time we add a new item, we have to get a vote on every new change to the order of business. So we'll be doing a hands vote. For those who approve of adding the new presentation onto the order of business, please raise your hand. All right, you can put down your hand. For those who are against, please raise your hand. All right, you can put your hands down. For those who abstain, please raise your hand. Looks like it was unanimous, so we'll be adding this item, which is the SCLU Disabled Student Center presentation sponsored by Senator Bautista. All right. So because the item has been properly motioned and seconded and we voted on the change, we will now move on to special presentations. So the first special presentation that we'll be reviewing is the Trying Television Annual Updates and Mandate Reserves Request sponsored by Chief Financial Officer Hong.
So actually I was gonna table this to next week.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll be tabling the special presentation A, Triton Television Annual Updates and Mandated Reserves Request, sponsored by Chief Financial Officer Hong, to next week, which we'll be finding in special presentations next week. But I realized I missed Senator Yu raising her hand. Senator Yu, did you need to say something?
No, sorry, that was from earlier.
Okay, all right. We'll be moving on to the next special presentation then, which is special presentation SCLU, the Disabled Students Resource Center, which is sponsored by Senator Bautista. Just to remind everyone to remind people who are presenting that there is a 15-minute frame for your presentation, which is followed by a 5-minute Q&A. So, yeah. Right, you have the floor.
All right, thank you guys. So, as I said, my name is Aryan Dixit. I'm the president of the Student Civil Liberties Union in San Diego. And one of our key issues that we've been working on for the past few years has been the Disabled Students Resource Center. Next slide, please. Yeah, so a little bit about us. Student Civil Liberties Union is a student advocacy group. It's about grassroots action, direct action, student advocacy to promote student issues and voices and also empower student-run structures. One of these structures, of course, being the centers, community organizations, and of course, student government. We have a few other ongoing campaigns that have been pretty important for us, such as the Immigrants and Undocumented Student Advocacy campaign, where we've been conducting several demonstrations, talking to different the UC regents and other prevalent decision makers in this space, and also for free speech and expression on the UC campuses. So today I'm of course here to talk to you about the Disabled Students Resource Center. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So like I said, for the past few years, the leadership of our organization has coordinated campaigns for disability justice at the highest levels possible. We and the people who have founded my organization, as well as led it, including me, have been involved in the Disabled Students Alliance in the past, the Disabled Student Union and community, and also for various working groups that have been created and constructed over the past few years. And we have created several plans for the Disabled Students Resource Center, surveys to gauge student interest, procure legal data, receive legal counsel about how the university has been following, or in many cases, not following ADA regulation, and also for kinds of research for the feasibility of whether such involvement and such a center's construction is even possible. We've collaborated with several organizations like the UC Student Association, which is a statewide organization for all UC campuses, the UCSD administration, the UC administration, including the Office of the President and the Regents, to create referendums, working groups, trying to design the Disabled Students Resource Center on this campus. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the demands of the disabled students at UC San Diego, what do we want? We've compiled these ideas and demands over the course of a few years, including input from offices even inside the associated students. They were compiled with student surveys, available data, and also various working groups which are constructed by AS over the course of the last few years. Next slide, please. So, survey data. Firstly, the question that's often asked before we embark on such a project is, do you think that UCSD is actually accommodating people who have disabilities? And the overwhelming answer is like an eh. It's like, it's kind of mid. The way that UCSD and the UCs in general handle disabled students is often lackluster. It's, for example, the Triton Testing Center doesn't have enough accessibility resources. For example, a lot of campus is not accessible to walk. For example, personal experience of my own, walking between, for example, ERC and Marshall is extremely difficult, primarily because there is no accessible sidewalk and curb in that region. And we're not just talking about physical accessibility. We're also talking about accessibility to resources such as classes, courses, lectures, etc., which many professors refuse to put online, even though that would be absolutely essential for students with learning disabilities and also physical disabilities that prevent them from coming to campus and classes. Next slide, please. Yeah, so another question we asked was that, do you believe that UCSD is accommodating like visual, hearing related disabilities and other kinds of disabilities? And generally the answer is, once again, many people think that the answer is no. It's more than half of the population thinks that UCSD's students are not finding their demands met. It's difficult to get accommodations from OSD. It's difficult to get accommodations. In fact, it takes more than half the quarter to get them, which means that they often have to wait till their midterms are over to even get access to these kinds of accommodations, which is, in my opinion, pretty troubling. Because if you're a student who's trying to, succeed at UCSD with their courses and classwork, it becomes increasingly difficult to do that if the university is actively prohibiting you from, accessing resources that will make life easier. Next slide, please. So, another question we asked was, do you think professors are doing enough to accommodate students with disabilities? And do you think that, UCSD cares about its students who identify with the disabled student community? Here, the answer is a bit questionable. It's 50-50, so to speak. And the reason why is because a lot of professors on this campus have in fact adapted to the circumstances and are using Podcast UCSD and various other sources to make their classes more accessible. But a lot of them aren't too. And sometimes, you get on the short end of the stick, and you get professors who don't do their classes online, who don't record them, who don't put any resources online, and refuse to listen to disabled students in their AFA letters. This is difficult. This is something that we have to change on an organizational and structural level, which involves continuously educating these professors and faculty members so that such situations don't take place again. Next slide, please. So, this is the big important one. Do you think the OSD, or the Office with Students with Disabilities, is effectively able to help students? And the answer really is somewhat. So OSD does provide us with the access and resources that we require, such as AFA letters. It does, in fact, support the students who have cases against university discrimination. However, this is extremely inefficient, extremely slow. The caseload is very high, and there's roughly 6 to 7 people employed for around 33 to 40,000 students, which is abysmal, since a significant portion, more than around 48% of the University of California campuses have students with disabilities. So imagine 20,000 students on 6 to 7 people. It's abysmal. It's a terrible system which results in all these sorts of delays that we experience. Next slide, please. And the final question we asked was that, do you think that this kind of problem, this structural problem, can be solved by having a student center or a resource center on campus? And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. There were 4 students out of the 700 who filled out our survey who said no. Which means, of course, that there's overwhelming student interest in a disabled students resource center. Next slide, please. So what were our demands? Working with the AS Office of Local Affairs in 2022 and 23, and also with the Disabled Student Alliance, the Disabled United Student Community, and various other working groups in this campus, we came together with a list of these demands. Firstly, we would like a Disabled Students Resource Center. Secondly, a Student Oversight Committee for the Office of Students with Disabilities. Thirdly, reduced, consistent, and timely proof for accommodations, such as AFA letters. Fourth, the OSD introduction letter. If you all don't know, OSD generally sends a letter to professors in which classes have students with disabilities to inform them of the certain accommodations that are required. However, this has to be requested. There's a significant delay, and you have to continuously request that OSD sends this letter every quarter to all of your classes, which takes a lot of time. Furthermore, accessible course materials online. We're talking about lectures, we're talking about documents, slides, etc. Accessible future construction. This is something that UCSD has been working with us towards, and something that we continue to put on our demands list to ensure that this does take place. Furthermore, a map of accessible routes and improving UCSD's campus accessibility so that we understand where are the room areas for rooms with room for improvement, where we can potentially support the campus construction and transportation facilities with like accessible resources. And furthermore, lastly, accessibility signage to make sure that disabled students know that these paths are accessible and these are the fastest ways to get from one place to another. Otherwise, we get stuck wandering on campus, trying to find out how to get from point A to point B. And if you all don't know, and I think you do know, this campus is humongous. So the potential for like having to try and find out the best way to access campus for physical accessibility is very important to us. Next slide, please. All right. So why do we want the establishment of a student advisory group for the Office of Students with Disabilities? We wanted to have 5 students representatives, a liaison, a disabled students advocate from the Disabled Students Commission, which is, I believe, constituted on the AS Office of External Affairs, and then 3 student volunteers who would presumably belong to various student organizations who have been working on this case for the last few years. Ideally, we would consist of those with disabilities or affected by the OSD's policies, and we'd have oversight of the major decisions that affect the student body, especially including the resource center, including like the AFA regulation and the ADA regulation compliance, and the kinds of efforts that the university takes, especially with utilizing its funding, which I'll get to later. We would, of course, be trying to get as diverse a population to represent the OSD board, but this is generally the idea that we have. Next slide, please. All right, so why do we want a Disabled Students Resource Center at UC San Diego? Firstly, it has many important involvements, mainly because it's, as you all know, we have around 7 or so similar centers in campus, like the LGBT Center, the Intertribal Resource Center, the Raza Resource Centro, and various other centers on campus. So why not a Disabled Students Resource Center? We need community building since the disabled students community of this campus is incredibly fractured. We need support groups, social events, membership. We also need education awareness through ableism training both for faculty and students, universal design so that it's accessible to students, and a culture for disabled student programming. Furthermore, we need access to resource navigation. If y'all, it's really difficult for disabled students to access this campus because a lot of us don't even know how to access disabled student resources. OSD is not very forthcoming with regards to how to access it and how to support and receive accommodations. And a significant number of students on this campus don't even know that they have disabilities that can be accommodated. And it's important for us to reach out to those people as well. Furthermore, advocacy support so that students have the ability to, advocate for themselves and bring up issues that they see on campus to provide us with assistance, audits, policy feedback, etc. And finally, we want collaboration. We want to partner with OSD, CAPS, HSS, housing, transportation, the EDI offices, and the Disabled Students Resource Center would be a perfect conduit for doing something of this sort. Next slide, please. So what's the problem? We actually did get funding from the UC Board of Regents to construct these sort of spaces. In 2023 and to 24, we received 1.5 million, close to 1.6 million dollars to support a disabled student space at specifically a Disabled Students Resource Center on this campus. And I'm getting this information from the March 19th update to the UC Board of Regents meeting item A2. So this is coming from the Board of Regents, the horse's mouth itself. And we received $1.6 million. So where did that money go? Next slide, please. Yeah, so the money actually ended up being used only for the staff's salaries at the Office of Students with Disabilities. In fact, the university generally, moves funding here and there to accommodate for this sort of budget, and they use the earmark funds from the Regents funding instead of their own previous funding for campus accessibility programs to fund these staff salaries, which means that we did not get a Disabled Students Resource Center on campus, clearly. Furthermore, we then tried to go to the university and get them to provide a referendum, a student fee referendum for the construction of such a Disabled Students Resource Center. However, they did provide us with that, but they also bundled it together with their construction fees to construct various centers and spaces on campus, which accumulated to $250 or so in addition for student fees, which was, of course, resoundingly rejected by this body in front of me. And so our student fee was only for $3.50 per quarter. We did not get that passed, and which meant that the entire effort that we've been building up for the last 2 to 3 years has been resoundingly rejected, fractured, and furthermore bogged down by these sort of problems and bureaucratic considerations. And so, of course, there was no disabled students center constructed on this campus. Next slide, please. So now the important question to answer is, what are we doing and what can you do to help us? So firstly, what are we doing with regards to, the Student Civil Liberties Union? We've been trying to construct and consolidate our resources yet again, since many of our, disabled students advocates graduated last year. We've been trying to get students involved, get awareness about these kinds of issues, doing accessibility walks, research, further understanding the ways in which OSD and its inefficiency and also the lack of a disabled students resource center affects our students. What can you do to help? We require your assistance with constructing and creating a work group, as is the case for.
So you hit the 15 minutes unless you want an extension. Do
Could
you think you would need an extension?
I need like 2 minutes.
Move to extend by 2 minutes. Second.
All right. Are there any objections to it? No. All right. You have 2 more minutes.
Thank you. All right. So basically, what you can do to help us is essentially support us in creating the work group that we've constructed for the past few years for associated students to assist in the construction or the creation of a disabled students resource center. This work group has worked with us for the last few years to try and construct the Disabled Students Resource Center, and this requires your help as official elected representatives of the student body. Next slide, please. We need your help, and this work group consists of individuals such as yourselves, senators specifically, to rebuild and promote the Disabled Students Resource Center objective. I have two links in front of me right now. One is our Instagram, which is sclu.sd, and the second one is an email link, which would allow you to connect with us and tell us that you're interested in supporting our objective for a Disabled Students Resource Center on this campus. I wholeheartedly recommend that you scan that QR code and send us an email, primarily because this isn't possible without your help. We need to pass referendums through the AS. We need to support the creation of offices and spaces for disabled students on this campus through AS. And it's not easy for us to do outside of it through just direct action, grassroots organizing, etc. If the questions raised in this presentation do ring a bell with you and you do think that you're interested in helping out, please do scan that QR code. Please do message us. And if not, message us on Instagram at sclu.sd, and we will be very happy and supportive of that initiative. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I'll now open it up for a 5-minute Q&A. Please raise your tags if you would like to ask Mr. Dixit any question. All right. Senator Etefog can go first.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I just had a quick question for the survey that you did show us. I believe it was 650 students that were that participated in the survey. Can you tell us how these students were like contacted, like what demographic it has come from? Is it just from your club, or like what was the process for that?
So this was actually conducted by the Office of Students with Disabilities in addition to the AS Office of Local Affairs in 2022 to 23. So basically the collection of that data was done by mainly surveys for individuals who utilize the OSD services and individuals who are on campus and a part of disabled student spaces. So mainly the group that was selected was people who seek accommodations from the Office of Students with Disabilities.
Senator El-Khoury, you can go next.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and for all the work you and your organization have done so far. Based on the work you've done, how much funding do you expect if the university actually did, earnestly want to build the resource center, how much funding do you think it would need to be constructed and constructed well?
So, the real cost in this entire thing is not exactly the construction because we just need a room on campus. So it can be, any space. It can be this space. It can be some other room on this campus. The main funding for this would come from staff salaries. We need to hire members to be a part of the Disabled Students Resource Center and provide for that. The funding can vary for these sort of like issues. The last time we created an estimate, it ranged between $1 to $2 million.
All right, are there any other questions? Please raise your tag. Looks like there's no additional questions. Thank you so much, Dixit, for coming in and presenting. All right, now we have no other presentations, so we'll be moving on to office report. Are there any reports from senators? Please raise your tag and do not exceed 4 minutes. Senator Stangang.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I just wanted to inform the Senate. Some of you already know, but I am currently working on getting an Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month resolution passed through. It's in order to celebrate this important month. I feel like it's important, particularly that Asian American and Pacific Islanders are recognized by AS. It's a very large group, and in some ways it is unjustified to clump them all, basically like a whole massive, the biggest continent, into a single group and give them 1 month. Obviously, that is something wrong, but I think that we have a further reason then to actually want to act upon that and give it the proper consideration and appreciation that it deserves. The resolution touches on the fact that it is a big community with lots of different cultures and languages and traditions that are important to our community, and also touches on the past injustices, including the Chinese Exclusion Act, the internment of Japanese Americans during the Second World War, and other ongoing injustices, including recent sparks in Asian hate and anti-Asian violence. So I have been working with fellow senators and also other connections that I have amongst the college councils. I really want this to be something that really hits at home. So I am hoping to see that all the college councils pass the resolution, and then we finally, next week, hopefully, are able to pass it before the end of the month. This would mean a lot to me, and I'm sure it would mean a lot to many of you in this room and the countless others on campus that are either a part of this community or really also share in the appreciation. If you have any questions regarding how you can either co-sponsor the resolution or make sure that your council passes it, feel free to reach out to me on Slack. I'm always, I will be checking. So just let me know if you'd like to see the wording, and thank you all so far who have been a part in making sure that your councils have been able to get a chance to vote on it. And once again, let me know if you have any questions or any issues arise, and hopefully we can get this done very quickly. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you so much for that report. Next is Senator Etepag. And reminder, please raise your tag if you would like to be put on the speakers list.
Thank you so much. First, I want to say it's my pleasure working with you, Senator, on this resolution. I did want to give a quick update about something that Senator Minju Kim and I have been working on, and that you guys might have seen, but in the Slack, we did announce that we have created an ERC Senator Instagram account. We believe this is a vital way to improve outreach as well as bridge the gap between ERC students and AS. We'll be posting office hours, helpful tips and tricks, as well as helping ERC students feel more connected. If you guys do, we are trying to follow a lot of the AS accounts. So please let us know if we're missing any. If you guys follow us, we will follow you back if we see it. But yeah, we really believe this is a great way to do some outreach. And then I have another short note, a little short thing. Last week during the Student Council of ERC GBM, the fellow Senator Minju Kim was nominated and awarded the Student Council Member of the Week. I wanted to honor her amazing leadership and all of her hard work that she's done in the association and in our Student Council. So congratulations.
You yield your time to the floor.
Yeah, I give my time.
All right. Next is Senator Bautista.
Yeah, so quick updates, good and mid. the mid news is that we were supposed to have a meeting with Patty on Friday to continue our conversation about parking equity on campus. So quick recap for the newer college senators. Our parking equity plan was like creating, I guess, like a stipend tier list for students to kind of have part of like their parking fees waived or like the parking passes waived. Eventually there was like a larger plan for creating more of like a dynamic pricing type deal. But anyways, we started that conversation last week. We plan to meet again Friday, and then she's like, rain truck. So who knows when that's gonna be planned again. On better news, Louis from Basic Needs was able to talk to the AVP of Food and Housing, and we learned that their director of food affairs has actually been working on like creating something called like Triton shelters, which would basically be like a student-run houselessness shelter, and they had like a source for funding. So Louis was able to meet with her today and get more information on that, but it seemed like they just kind of had like a rough plan, but they did have like a way to get funding. So we're gonna try to meet with their funder as well as what is her name? Ellen. To try to see if we can combine our ideas and revive our safe parking idea. So looking hopeful there. It would still be like an off-campus thing, but like in partnership with our campus. So maybe more appealing for the admin of their whole deal. But yeah, a lot of hopeful conversation there. So keep everyone updated and cross your fingers.
All right, are there any other senators that would like to make a report? Looks like there are no other senators, so we'll be moving on to AS offices. Are there any reports from offices? All right, it looks like we have no reports from offices, so we'll be moving on to question time, which is asking questions for any of the reports. I do have a question for Senator Tangang. Have you reached out to like API-MEDA, which is the resource center for Asian Pacific Islander, Middle Eastern, Desi, I think American Center, and then we also have APSA, which is our Asian Pacific Islander Student Alliance. Have you talked to any of those organizations slash resource centers?
Yeah, so I haven't had the chance to yet. I've been very focused on trying to get this passed through. I know because of the time crunch and the nature of the fact that some councils meet at a certain time and others don't, I've been very much focused on making sure we get this message out. I'd be more than happy to reach out to them during the course of this month and into future months just to make sure that we are making sure that all members of that community are represented as well. And I'd love to hear any of the future ideas that they have. And I'll try to reach out and also try to be a voice here for any sorts of events and special resources they might have to offer as well. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I yield back.
Sure. Are there any questions besides mine? No? All right. We'll be moving on to the reports of committees. Since we had committees canceled today for the C-level hiring, C-level interviews to the public today, I won't be diving too much into this. So we'll be moving on to unfinished business, which is
Motion to move this to next week. Motion to delay the current finance action item to next week.
Second.
Objection.
Do we have quorum for this?
I'd like to make a
We do
motion
not have
to.
Motion to do open roll call vote to see if we have quorum.
yeah, can we do yeah, just a roll call to see if we have quorum. Thank you, clerk.
Elena Padilla-Macias, Elizabeth Diaz, Wui Harati, Alex Lujan, Davina Madan,
Here.
Ruby Garcia, Ashlyn Batista, Daniel Perez, Jennifer Ruiz, Christina Rodriguez,
Here.
Rachel Alarcon,
Here.
here, Katie Johnson,
Here.
Sadine Al-Fakir,
Here.
Nelly Zapata Castillo, Faisal El-Khoury,
Here.
Daniel Satangang,
Here.
Cameron Edifa,
Here.
Minju Kim,
Here.
Zaid Azam,
Here.
Sam Helvig,
Here.
Amrutha Velavelli, Erica Yu,
Here.
Avantika Ramasamy,
Here.
Jonah Kravitz,
Here.
Leslie Vallejo Avila, Jenna Huang,
Here.
Rishi Alamarty,
Here.
Eduardo Tapia Jr. Bieta, Jacob Hong,
Here.
Janice McCadney, William Maheen.
Here.
You have 19 out of 31 present.
We
Point
do
of
not have a
information.
quorum.
Point of information. Am I able to make a motion to put this item as an open vote until Friday at 5 p.m.?
Indeed, you can. Is there a second to your motion?
Second.
Are there any objection? All right, then we'll just go forward with the unfinished business and discuss it. We have to vote on it. We'll do it. Which is finance action item mandate reserves funding request MOU game development fund in the amount of $10,000 sponsored by Chief Financial Officer Hong. Is there a motion to approve finance item A?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, since we have a proper motion and second, I will now open up a speakers list for discussion, reminding senators to raise their hand to be placed on the speakers list for no more than 3 minutes at a time. I will let CFO Hong go first to discuss this item, to give us a quick refresher on what this item is. CFO
I'd like
Hong, you have the floor.
I'd like to yield my time to a member that's waiting in the Zoom. Tamerlane Barak.
Hello. Is just confirming, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sounds good. Cool. Yeah, so did the presentation last week, essentially asking for the $10,000 to send UCSD students to the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco. I did want to add just some additional context that I failed to provide to the Senate. So I didn't use part of my I didn't take a stipend in the last academic year, and so as a result, that amount of money, the 2,000 that was allocated towards my stipend was also on the table. And after syncing up with CFO Huang, we essentially said that we can essentially reduce the ask from 10,000 to 8,000 and move the stipend that was allocated to me towards that fund as well. So I just want to give that additional context as well.
Thank you. And I'd like to reclaim my time. I know Senator Edifa has reached out to me and also asked me during last week's Senate what the approximate number of our reserves were. And I can confidently say that we are at approximately over $651,000 in our mandate reserves, which is over $200,000 of our minimum requirements. And I do expect this number to grow in the next fiscal and academic year, as there were a lot of non expenditures and certain line items that will roll over in either our carry forwards or our reserves. And if anyone has any questions regarding that, please feel free to do so.
Are there any? Oh, yeah, Senator Bautista.
So just to clarify, you want to change the amount from 10K to 8K, or is that just you could, or are you actually doing it? Okay, wait.
So to answer your question, Tamerlane is a chief of staff in the Office of Student Orgs, and his position is allotted a little over $2,000 for the full year. But Tamerlane never accepted his stipend and actually volunteered to work under the Office of Student Orgs as a chief of staff. So we want to indirectly and both directly use his stipend allocation that was originally intended for him to go towards this ask. So technically, we're of the 10,000, we'd actually only be paying 8,000 out of pocket. I hope that answers your question.
Point of information, can we motion then to amend it to 8K?
Is
The
there
issue with so to answer your question, Rishi, the issue with that is that there is no project number you can pull out of
order?
of
I'm so sorry. If you wanted to speak, you can speak now.
I think he was just answering my point of information question.
Your point of information was asking if we can motion to have this amended, but we answered that. We had someone motion and second, and then he decided he was going to speak to about answer your question, but it wasn't really a question that needed all of that. But CFO Hong, you may speak.
Wait, so I'm confused. Am I allowed to answer his question or am I not allowed to?
You can answer the question now.
Okay, Rishi, point of privilege, could you please restate your question?
Yeah, since if 2,000 is going to be covered from the stipend, can we amend the item to only say that we're requesting an $8,000 pull for mandated reserves?
Yeah, so I get where you're coming from, but we can't do it that way, right? So in order for any transaction or expenditure to be like processed, you need a project number, and there are no project numbers assigned to stipends or stipend line items. So in a way, like because Tamerlane isn't like he wasn't paid at all throughout this whole year, we have 2K that's left over in the Office of Student Org's like I guess realm or ecosystem that is being indirectly allocated towards this initiative. So again, like we're while on paper it's reflecting 10 grand, we're actually out of pocket only paying 8 grand. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Senator Ettifog.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. After bringing this back to the College Council, the Student Council of ERC, we did have some questions, primarily how this is to the CFO, also to Tamerlane. How do you guys make sure that there was no, I guess, like collusion, considering that you are the chief of staff for the AVP of student orgs? Was there any sort of like favoritism in that process? That was a concern that our GBM had.
Wait, I guess point of privilege, could you please like explain like what you mean on favoritism or collusion?
Well, I mean, like, was there any sort of means that allowed, because he is already the chief of staff of a department, did he have unequal access to, I guess, get these funds? Because, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I actually I don't understand what you're saying because like just because he's the chief of staff of the Office of Student Orgs, like doesn't mean he has a better access of like requesting funds because every office and every office staffer, no matter what office or department they might be in, has the same amount of opportunity of requesting funds from mandate reserves as anyone else, whether it be ACE, the Office of Student Spirit and Athletics, or food and housing or health and well-being, things like that. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Can we
And,
just,
and I
because
guess
we have
to
just for the
preface,
sake,
CFO Hong, it is Senator El Khoury's time to speak, so please let him speak.
sorry. I just for the sake of new senators, could we have the mandate reserve rules be sent in chat again so that everyone can review them, just so that everyone's on the same page with how that procedure and how those rules work? And if anyone, if I don't know what the procedure is, but someone can explain it verbally as well, that'd be useful.
Is it okay if we did that? Claire?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. It was, I remember you sent it last week, but if you could reshare it for everyone, that'd be great.
All right. Senator Statangang.
One of the other questions that we had regarding this, amongst having spoken amongst the other senators so far, is why this is listed as an MOU. As far as it was explained to us so far, MOUs are kind of like a running thing. We were wondering if this is supposed to be a pilot program that's supposed to stop after just 1 year, or is this something you wanted to continue? And just generally explain why this is classified as an MOU. Thank you.
Right. Do you yield your time to me?
Yes, I do yield to you.
Awesome. Yeah, so the MOU for this expires like after it's not going to be renewed, right? And the reason why we want to classify it as an MOU is so that we can actually have this on some sort of documentation or piece of paper that contracts out what the agreements were. And so, while MOUs like are kind of like understood to be renewed, this won't be renewed. This is going to be a pilot initiative, and we want this pilot initiative to be on paper, so that is it is like going to be treated as such next year when I'm not here or Tamerlane's not here or the next CFO or the next AVP of student orgs has to fulfill the obligations of the agreements, right? So it's this like an MOU is just going to be a vessel as a contract, and not all MOUs are renewed or have to be renewed.
I'll reclaim my time. I was just wondering then, so where is the precise wording of this MOU then? Because I feel a little bit hesitant to be approving the wording of an agreement or sort of pseudo contract without knowing precisely what the terms of it are. I'll yield my time. Can I yield twice? Or okay, I'll yield back to you. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, Tamerlane kind of already expressed it in the slideshow last week in the presentation. If y'all still have access to that, it was mentioned last week that these funds were going to directly and only be used for next year, during the time of the VGDC conference. Um, and so I'm not familiar with what the timeline is for this conference, but Tamerlane does. And so like whenever the conference happens and whenever the conference ends, that would be the duration of the MOU. So the MOU would take effect as soon as the funds get approved, and the MOU would, expire after the conference ends.
Got it. Thank you very much. I'll reclaim my time and then yield back to the.
All right. Next is Senator Yu. Senator
I had
Yu.
a couple of like clarifying questions, I guess, for Tamerlane. First, I think like the pilot program or the idea is like a really good one. Like you basically found a need or that wasn't really being addressed by the school, and by giving like allowing students to attend this conference, it kind of gives them that opportunity to break into this field. But some of the concerns that I mentioned last week are still ones that I feel like I guess I would want more information on. I guess the two questions that I have is first, I'm curious if you would be involved in like the AVP selection process, or I guess I'm curious like when that would occur for the Office of Student Organizations. And then the second is if you have any like more fleshed out ideas on like how you would ensure that the process is non-biased in terms of like selecting students to go. I yield my time to Tamara.
Cool. Sorry. Yeah. So answering the first question, if I have involvement in the AVP selection process, as far as I'm aware, I don't. I believe that Kabir, Jacob, and I think some other folks in the executive are going to be the ones that are involved. I don't think I have any involvement in that. At least nobody's told me about it. But I believe that the new AVP gets put into the position in like the last week of May, I want to say. And yeah, like I said, I believe I think our like term ends 5:30 or something like that. And to ensure the process is non-biased, it goes back to the way that I essentially outlined it last week was that the dynamic that we've been instilling into our office very, very like aggressively throughout this academic year is like in the intent of basically minimal interaction with the purposes of only auditing with student organizations, kind of keeping us very abstract, but having like a fundamental understanding of the organizations. And that allows us to have not a true unbiased approach towards the selection, because at the end of the day, like, it's difficult to remove all forms of bias, but it mitigates way more bias than involving, for example, I think I can't remember if it was a senator or somebody had said, the involvement of multiple organizations, like let's say VGDC and Triton Gaming, for example, being involved directly into the selection process, which would make it a lot more problematic, because then they have incentives to make themselves go, right? So we're trying to keep it more abstract by removing the people who are most likely to want to go, if that makes sense. I hope that answers their question. And if you need any clarification, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just gonna reclaim my time. I guess my thoughts on this is that again, like I know like I guess
Sorry,
my time
entering
left.
you. Your time is
No
up.
worries.
If you would like to re-raise your hand and say something, you can. But next would be Senator Bautista.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for you, Tamberlane. So my first one is like, how are you going to ensure that the next AVP will actually use this money for that? Because obviously it'd be like their line item, but it's also their prerogative to not just use it. So that's one. And then my second is just like, I don't know if you touched on this last week, but what was like your experience like trying to find sponsors for like covering costs or partial costs for this? And then, sorry, my third question is, in your slide deck, you talk about how like gaming is very male-centered. So how would you ensure that that is not an issue when it comes to like selecting who would go to this? Like, is there some sort of like affirmative action type thing that you're gonna do when it comes to accepting people's apps? And I'll yield my time to you.
Cool, thank you. Great questions. Yeah, so how do we ensure the next AVP will use this money? I mentioned it last week of the Office of Student Organizations has groups of people that already work in our office that are striving to get into this position. Obviously, like that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get into it, but we're hoping that we have people who are invested in not just this initiative, but all the initiatives that we've sorted out this academic year for the office, since we've had ridiculous amounts of success with everything that we've done so far. So hopefully that'll be not a risk, though we do intend on having like people, if we can't get an AVP that is willing to support this, we would want to have students that are in support of this from the organizations that were involved in helping us draft this. So Triton Gaming and BGDC help lobby the student organization AVP to use the action item, do the line item essentially, or like do what they're supposed to do based on that. So in terms of experience finding sponsors, I'm sure you may have heard about how tech is imploding. The game development industry has been hit disproportionately terribly. We've had 60,000 layoffs, which amounts to 1/4 of the entire industry in the last 12 months. And so there are not many companies that are willing to invest outside of select schools that I'd mentioned, and so part of this endeavor is striving to be able to get us into a situation where companies are going to be more willing to invest into our school. And I believe during the presentation I mentioned that like the payment, the pilot program and supporting this likely will have positive ramifications, and then sponsors reinvesting back into us in the future after we've established kind of a basis, because right now we're not considered a serious school in the gaming industry. I failed to write down what your third question was. If you could repeat it for me really quickly, I can answer it.
Okay. My third question was, in your slide deck, you talk about how the gaming community is disproportionately like seen as men and represented by men, even though a lot of gamers are women. So how would you ensure that the applications and the people that get to go are representative of the actual gaming community and not just men?
Yeah, totally. I got you here. So there are two parts here. One being that because we're engaging in the blind application approach, the hypothesis is that we would be more like willing to mitigate that risk in this case. So and when you look at if you look at the survey data of the participants who expressed interest, we actually the vast majority are non-binary and female identifying, which means that based on that premise, we can kind of extrapolate that it's likely that in a blind application setting that we would be getting more women and non-binary identifying folks into the program instead. Sorry, go ahead. My bad.
Sorry, your time is over. Next is Senator Yu.
Yeah,
Point
I
of
guess
information, my hand was raised before Senator Yu.
Yeah, but I run this meeting and I can say who can go first and who doesn't. So there's your point of information. Senator Yu, you can go.
Alright, thank you. Just to kind of follow up on what I was saying before, I guess just 2 points of concern that I have is that one, like this is a, relatively large initiative that is going to be taken on by the ABP as student organization. So I feel like it's fair for them to have a say in whether or not that's something that they want to commit to, if there are other, possible projects or programs that they want to do like with their funding instead. So ideally, I would love for this to be like pushed back until that new EVP is decided. And again, the second concern that I think I share with some other senators is just like, overall, it feels to me that like this selection process or the way to avoid bias is really dependent on like the culture that this year's team has created, which I think is amazing. But again, next year it could be an office full of completely different people, and not to say that they aren't the same as well, but I would just love for there to be more concrete like detailed set in terms of like which organizations you plan to outreach to, how you're going to ensure that this process is fair. Because overall, it seems like pretty blurry to me, and I would love to have those things maybe more like written out a bit more clearly, just to ensure that like the funds aren't, ultimately ended up being used by like people that like the AVP personally knows or people in the office personally knows. As that is an unfortunate like reputation that AS has sometimes. So those are just kind of 2 points of concerns that I have. And yeah, I yield my time back to the floor.
Beautiful Hong, you finally have the floor.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I just want to like mention to everyone that AS like funds a lot of money towards travel, towards like advocacy outreach and like things like that, going to Hill Day and things of those sorts, or even like we spent $16,000 towards 50 students to go to the Big West tournament and watch our school place #1 in the West. Um Tamerlane and I and the Office of Student Organizations, as well as uh the student organizations of video game development and Triton Gaming. We've been working on this request for since last quarter. I just want to mention the fact that we didn't like willy-nilly wake up one day and I guess decide to uh request $10,000 towards this. Students came to us with a need of helping their professional career path and that development. Um, while this isn't going towards like a sporting event or advocacy outreach, we're helping individuals, 25 individuals, I believe, help shape their career paths in video game development, making it more job oriented. And so, like for this Senate, I also do want to mention something I mentioned to Erica last week, is that Tamerlan and I like could have put this towards the former senators before week 5 if we wanted to. But our aim was to get this with a new set of eyes, with the new future leaders of the association, and get this exposed to y'all, since we know that y'all will have the set of eyes that are familiar with this request so that it can be perpetuated for next year. So I guess just take that as you will and know that there are like a large group of students that have expressed interest in helping their career paths through this initiative. And like I mean, as an association, I think it's a beautiful thing if we're able to help them out. Especially in a damaging job market. Thank you. I yield my time back to the floor.
Next would be Senator Rodriguez.
Hello, thank you guys for answering all those questions. Just another quick one for you. So I understand that this conference would help students get into the field, but with $10,000 among 25 students would be about $400 per student, and if you do include the stipend, it would still be $320 per student. So I was just wondering if this had a direct pipeline to the job industry, or would this just be introducing them into like the gaming world? Like I just want to know what kind of outcomes it have. I yield my time to either CFO Huang or Timberlake.
I could tackle the question since I'm more exposed to it than CFO Hong. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Sorry. Yeah. So there's never a guaranteed conversion into um any gaming like job or any job really, unless you know the person. But the problem with the gaming industry is that there are very few opportunities and avenues in which you get the capability to meet people who are in the industry that have an appropriate level of weight to translate into a career. I know that last a couple of weeks back we brought Epic Games to come out here and chat, but we don't often bring, for example, recruiters, lead hiring managers, and that kind of people out here. Outside of like very select like moments, I believe Triton Gaming Expo occasionally once a year brings like a couple of alumni back who we're fortunate now that they've gotten their career amplified. But we don't have this type of like flow for the most part right now. And these, as I said, these events happen almost incredibly infrequently. I can say anecdotally that of the 10 people that I know who went to GDC this year, who are my peers, 9 of them got jobs. That's an insane conversion rate. That's anecdotally. There isn't actual true objective data from the Game Developers Conference company showcasing, how many people can convert into a job. But from the data that I've kind of like gathered through the career discords that I participate in and I moderate, we've learned that there's generally around an 18 to 25% kind of conversion rate from to getting some semblance of career foot in the door, essentially. That's an insanely high number, to be clear. Like that's a very ridiculously high number for a networking event. And that's in comparison to essentially close to 0%. As I noted in the presentation, a 0.03% rate. That's what is that, like a 50,000%, or no, 5,000% increase. Sorry, I can't do math. My bad. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. I yield my time back to the floor.
Can I motion to call the question?
The only person who can call the question is the person who's speaking. So let's say I were to go on the speakers, you're on the speakers list and you're speaking. So during that 3 minutes, you speak, and then right after you finish talking, you say, I call the question, and that's when you can call the question. We have 3 more speakers on the list, unless one of them calls the question. Senator Okori.
Yeah, I guess I'll just speak for a second on a lot of what AS has done in the past. This is not the first travel conference that AS will be funding, and definitely not the last. I'm currently on the hiring committee for the C-suite officers, and so the whole question of fairness that's been brought up multiple times is very fresh on my mind. But I don't think it's the job of the AVP of student orgs alone, or the CFO, to be thinking about that. It's this is a sort of AS-wide initiative that we have to take to improve that. We've gotten the complaints many times before that with a lot of AS travel trips, it's just people who know the organizer who end up going on that. And so this is very much a valid concern, and I think that is something we should work on improving, sort of the ethics of how we pick people for these trips. But I don't think this is the right time to talk about it. This should be an AS-wide thing that we discuss with most likely the incoming CPO, the incoming executive. It's a big issue, and I see many of the more experienced members nodding their heads right now because this is a complaint that we faced in the past. And yeah, I'll just say one last thing is that we do have some rules in place. It's just that they're not always followed. So I would encourage any, especially newer senators, to look into that, talk to the current CPO, talk to the incoming CPO when they're selected on how to improve that process. And probably if this does get passed, we should make sure that it's not just the Office of Student Orgs deciding this $10,000 fund and how it's spent on their own. There should be Senate oversight, and especially oversight of the CPO to be an impartial body in that. So if anyone's more interested in that, that's something I'd encourage you to pursue just generally because this is not the only travel conference that we do spend tens of thousands of dollars every year on traveling to various conferences across the country. Yeah, and with that, I'll just yield my time back to the floor.
All right, thank you so much. Next is Senator Yu.
Yeah, I guess I have a question for the chair. Um, I'm wondering if it's like possible for us to like table this motion until after the AVP is selected. I'm not sure what exactly that like timeline would be because I know that would be pretty close to like the end of the school year, but that was one question. And the other one, I was just curious if like the campus wide, like the new campus wide senators, like when they will be terming in as well. I yield my time to the chair.
So for the campus-wide senators, they'd be terming in around week 9 or 10. I think more week 10. Depending on whether or not we have a Senate meeting that day, because we have a lot of events going on the last few weeks of school. And what was your other question? I apologize.
No worries. And then my other question was just if it was possible to make a motion to table this item until after the like AVP of student organization is selected.
I believe since you motioned it, you'd have to have a second motion for that, and then hopefully no objections. There is an objection, that would be a different conversation. But is there a second for this motion?
Second.
All right, are there any objections?
Can I have a point of information?
Oh,
Will, I guess, like this Senate still be in session when the new AVP of student org like terms in? Right? Because wouldn't they have to be approved by the next Senate and the next elected officers and not this Senate? Right? So it wouldn't even be on the agenda at that point.
my question is, have we even started AVP hiring yet?
We have started grading, and they're starting interviews tomorrow.
Okay.
Let me look. Student or
What week is this?
oh, it's okay. We haven't started interviews yet or interviews? No. We're starting interviews for AVPs, but not for college. What is it? Brain. Yeah, student org.
Unless we have all of the AVPs chosen and ready to be voted in by week 10, possibly we won't see Senate convene for
Well,
this item.
they have to be in by week 10, so that's like the last day we have.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a follow-up point of information for the senators that are on the hiring committee? But I guess my follow-up again is even if they are selected and interviewed by week 10, Senate still has to approve them, right? But that wouldn't be this Senate, it'd be next Senate by the new elected officers that would approve it, the appointment, right? So
I believe so, yeah.
So by then this agenda is kind of null, right? Because there would be basically a brand new Senate convening for the new year and you can't even move that to that agenda, correct? Because someone would have to reintroduce this again in the fall to put this on the agenda. Does that make sense?
I think you could put it on the agenda, but like all the new campus-wide, off-campus, like they wouldn't know the presentation.
But that's a brand new agenda because they wouldn't be following our agenda since they would.
Oh, you're saying like the agenda renews each year?
Yeah, because the reconvening of a new Senate.
Yeah, so, yes. Then to your question, yes.
Okay. So I guess, yeah. Good.
Would anyone like to table it to next year?
Point of information, just if the future VP decides they don't want to do this, does the money just sit there and then they can't access it? Or is there like potential, or does the money go to waste somehow? Can they use that somewhere else? Right, so that, in that case, it's fine to approve it, and if then the next years don't want to do it, then it just doesn't happen, or are they like bound like constitutionally to do it? That's my point of information.
I guess follow-up point of I guess if it isn't a line item, they can't use it for anything outside of that line item anyway, right? So even if it did get approved, like if they didn't use it, just move into general unallocated, right? If they didn't use that money,
No, it would still stay in the reserves.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So then even if they didn't, so let's say, I guess, point of information for Tifa Hong, if the next AVP didn't want to use it, it would just stay in reserves because it's going to be a line item for this conference in specific.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next is Senator. Oh wait, Senator, did I answer your questions, or at
Yes,
least
you
half of your
did.
question?
Yes.
All right. All right. Next is Senator Bautista.
Yeah, this question's for Tamerlan. So, you said you were working with like a couple student orgs on this. Have they, or I guess you, done or considered any just like personal fundraising for this? Like library walk, like a lot of other orgs? And if so, like, did you make any money from that? If not, why didn't you consider doing that? I yield my time to you.
Yeah, so the student organizations that are participating, they haven't personally done fundraising. I will say that as a previous student organization leader who has done fundraising, that fundraising can only make so much money without some avenue that we're like kind of like building that up. This is partially a project that is in support of these organizations, but also a project that I'm driving a lot more heavily on my end. So I'm currently not affiliated with a student organization as per like what I've said about wanting to maintain kind of like independence to refrain from any bias being in my role. And so as a result, like it's difficult for me to personally fundraise, but the student organizations are not able, have not been able to do so yet in this capacity.
Like
We
to
are
reclaim my time. Thank you for that. I just going off of that more to just like an open comment. I feel like we should at least have the student orchestra because even if it's $1,000, that's $1,000 out of our mandated reserves. And just CFO Huang kind of brought up comparing this and opportunities to similar to like Hill Day or our campus spirit events, and I feel like those are more general like student body things where anyone in the student body would be willing to go watch a basketball game or to go advocate for their school and their needs. Whereas like this is a very targeted audience that we're now using student fees on when the students in those orgs haven't even tried fundraising themselves, even if it's a small amount, and now they want like Senate to help them cushion and finish off their funding for it. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I'll yield my time.
Was that a question to Taman? Okay. Next is VPAA Yalamarty.
Yeah. All right. Before I motion, I'm just going to let everyone know that after that, I plan on just motioning it to an open roll call. I feel like this discussion could go on and on and on. So I'm going to motion after my motion to call the question for an open roll call until Friday night. And obviously, that still gives everyone 2 days if you guys want to reach out to CFO Hong or the Office of Student Org to ask any additional questions. So with that, I motion to call the question.
Second.
Are there any objections?
Point of information.
Yes.
Didn't Senator you and I did we try to table this to the next AVP? I'm sorry, I'm confused about what happened there.
Yeah. I don't
Okay.
think, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see. Sorry, I was just confused. Thank you.
So, are there any objections to calling a question? All right, we'll be going to a vote to call the question, which is to end the debate and vote on this item. For those who would vote yes on finance action item, mandate reserve funding request MOU Game Development Fund 25 to 26 in the amount of $10,000 sponsored by Chief Financial Officer Hong, please raise your hand.
Point of inquiry, shouldn't this be roll call?
It's just raised.
Okay.
Yeah. can put your tags down. For those who would like to vote against ending the discussion for a finance action item, please raise your hand. Okay, put your tags down. For those who would like to abstain about calling a question for a finance action item mandated reserve funding request, please raise your tag. All right. Looks like we will be ending the discussion. I believe VPAA Yalamardi has a second motion.
Can I motion for this item to have an open roll call vote until Friday at 9 p.m.?
Is there a
Second.
second? Are there any objections? No? All right. Then we'll just go ahead and start voting on finance action item A, which is mandated reserve funding request, MOU Game Development Fund 25 to 26 in the amount of $10,000 sponsored by Chief Financial Officer Hong. Clerk, may you please conduct a roll call vote? Oh yeah, this is a vote on the item and not for calling a question. So this is about the approval or not passing the one item in unfinished business.
And the way open roll call votes work is whoever's present votes, and then those who aren't or who abstain can complete their vote by Friday at 5 p.m.
9 p.m.?
Did I say 9? 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then, sorry, quick point of information. So if people vote abstain today, they can change their vote up until then? Or if you vote now, is that your final vote?
If you vote now, it's your final vote unless it's an abstain.
Okay.
Ready? I'm sorry. So the time is 9 p.m. Okay. Elena Padilla Macias, Lisbeth Diaz, Wui Hirati, Alex Lujan, Davina Madan,
Abstain.
Ruby Garcia, Ashlyn Batista,
No.
Daniel Perez, Jennifer Ruiz, Christina Rodriguez,
No.
Rachel Alarcon,
No.
Katie Johnson,
No.
Sadine Al Fakir,
No.
Nelly Zapata Castillo, Faisal El Khoury,
Yes.
Daniel Satengang,
No.
Cameron Edifa,
No.
Minju Kim,
No.
Zaid Azam,
Abstain.
Sam Helvig,
Abstain.
Amrutha Velavelli, Erica Yu,
No.
Avantika Ramasamy, on Zoom, Jonah Kravitz,
Abstain.
Leslie Vallejo Avila, Rishi Alamardi,
Abstain.
Eduardo Tapia Jr. Bieta, Jacob Pong,
Yes.
Denisha McCadney, William Maheen.
Abstain.
It's not over yet.
So because it is an open vote, so people can send out their votes throughout the week. The deadline is this Friday at 9 p.m. So if you know any senators that aren't here today and can vote, please tell them to vote. You'll be receiving an email shortly about this open vote, and you would just have to reply to that, but don't hit reply all if there is that option. But now that we have finished finance action item mandate reserves funding request MOU Game Development Fund in the amount of $10,000 sponsored by Chief Financial Officer Hong, and decided that we're going to have an open vote for that, we'll move on to new business. All right. So for new business, the first item is action item A, legislative action item, hiring Senate amendment sponsored by Senator Bautista, Is there a motion to approve action item A?
Point of information. The the specific legislative item is an amendment to the Constitution, as I understand it to be, and it says that the date from which to take effect is today. So, is the amendment formula purely just Senate approving it, or does it not require the College Council to also?
Yeah. Um,
High key, I just didn't know what that meant, so I just put the date it was going to be approved. So we can fix that.
all right, is there a second motion for the this?
Second.
All right, the item has been properly motioned and seconded. I will now open up the speakers list for discussion, reminding senators to raise their hand to be placed on the speakers list for no more than 3 minutes at a time. Senator Bautista, would you like to discuss what this item is?
Yeah. So this obviously would not take place this year, but I just think in future years, we should be enforcing blind reviews of applications. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't do this before. This language itself is inspired by the Revels councils. If anyone's interested in that, but basically it's just making sure that in the initial review process, so when we just do like the applications, as in like the written applications and the grading on that, that the committee would not know the name of the person, any like revealing things like past experiences, as if like on their resume it said like they were in the association before, that would be taken out or blacked out. Just to ensure again less bias, and to alleviate a lot of concerns that we have constantly been seeing in AS hiring practices. Yeah, I think that's about it. Pretty straightforward.
Senator Tangang.
First of all, I want to really thank Senator Batista for doing such a great job in getting the ball rolling on this. I think it's very important. Like she said, I don't know why we haven't already done this for a long time already. I'm very much in favor of this proposal, and one of the main things I'm just wanting to clarify here is then what does the role of the CPO have? Because they're still supposed to be involved in the hiring process, but are they going to take more of a role of facilitator rather than an actual participant in the decision-making process? I'll yield to you, Steve.
Yeah, so my idea is like obviously the blind does not work for interview. So in our like review process, it's only shock, so the senators that are doing the grading. So if the CPO sees the names and things like that, they don't have a vote initially on like who's passing to private interviews. Does that make sense?
Got it. Thank you very much. That clarifies the question. I yield to the floor.
All right, next is CCO Maheen.
Yeah, love the legislation. I guess my only, motion could be amending the date to effect next year. So if you're willing, Ashlyn, can I motion to amend the date to take effect to be September 30th of 2025?
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any objections? Because Senator Alarcon, do you have an objection?
No, sorry.
It's okay. All right. It has been properly motioned to make this amendment on the legislative action item, and there were no objections. We can amend that on the item.
I put like a live version in the Senate. Live.
All right. Next is Senator Ettifog.
Yes, thank you. And I also agree that this should have been implemented sooner. I just have a quick question. Just a little bit confused. So the hiring process, from what I understand, is you're graded and then you're invited to a private interview. So if we are removing any personal identifiers, such as like past experience in AS, does that mean that that information will not be used during that first like grading process? Okay.
Yes, that would be my idea. And like any, I guess, identifiable or personally identifiable information as deemed by the CPO would also be removed.
I see, but sorry, this might be a dumb question, but that can be brought up in the interview. Okay, thank you. I yield back.
All right, next is Senator El Khoury.
Thank you. I just have a quick question just reading this because the way it's worded seems it only applies to like the big ticket hiring, like C-suite and AVPs, because I know the CPO can't personally be involved in every single hire. So is the way this is worded applied to all the hiring that AS does? And if not, can we do that? I don't know if it would be part of this or part of a separate piece of legislation. But yeah, that's my question. I yield to Senator Bautista.
In terms of like within offices and things like that, I did not consider that. I just looked up constitution and looked up like hiring language, and like this was the main or the only language I saw about hiring, so that's where I edited it. By like big ticket, do you mean just like AVPs and C levels? Is that what you meant? Okay, yeah. Then I think this would only cover that. The covering like individual offices, I don't know where that is in the constitution. I did not look at that. But if any other senator wants to do that.
Yeah, I'll kill my time and say, yeah, that's something I will look at in the near future. Hopefully we can get it passed this year just because we're going to move into a big wave of hiring. So if anyone wants to help with that and read through all the rules, we can do that together. Cool. Yield my time.
All right, next is Senator Ettifak. I think you raised your hand.
Yes, sorry. I just have a quick question. I don't know if this sounds the correct way or this makes sense, but do you personally see any downfalls in having higher chance? Like, I guess, what's the cutoff between the first round from the like application to the interview? I do have a small concern is that are we going to get more AVPs through that are not going to have proper experience in that said office or in the association? I do think that's important that like, yeah, but I understand what this is saying too. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is a valid concern and like something I thought about too. Like, obviously, you'd want someone that knows what they're doing to some extent. But at the same time, like with CPO and like I guess our incoming CPOs, if you're at the interview, made it like a huge thing that they wanted to revive the onboarding process. So I feel like the flaw might lie in the fact that someone is just thrown into their role, not necessarily that they're unqualified for it, if that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of updating that could be done there. In terms of like numbers of people that go through, the rule is like you can have up to 5. Like for this season, we did all our grading, we added up all our scores, and it'd be like the top however many that we deemed fit, but up to 5. So like say there was like one in like the 200s and one was like 50. Like I don't think we need to interview the 50. So just like using our personal like gauge and scale is how we chose people to move on to private interviews. But yeah, it'd be like up to 5. So that wouldn't necessarily change.
Thank you. I yield back.
All right, next is VPAA Yalamarty.
Yeah, I just had a quick question too. Obviously, I agree with the general sentiment that this is super important. The only question that I really had though is that like if for example like a candidate who was applying for some position wrote like in my time as the AVP of food and housing, obviously that's identifiable, right? But like let's say like that kind of like just like screws up their entire response in terms of flow if it's going to be redacted. So will like is it just up to the CPO of how much they notify the applicants about this information, or is there guidelines so that the applicants know that anything that is identifiable like that will be redacted from the response? I yield my time.
Yeah, I don't know, Senator Rodriguez, you're in Ravel, right? Like, do you know the policy that you guys have for that? I was inspired by theirs, so that's why I yield to you.
Yeah, thank you. So we're currently in the process of doing VPI and AS Senator interviews right now. So basically, I can share it with you guys if you'd like a template of what we have later. But basically, it is kind of up to someone's discretion of how much they show or not show. You're not notified what is redacted, but most of the time it does say vaguely AS general, but not necessarily the specific position they were in or specifics of who they are as a person. But it does still have the importance of what they did in their position, the impact that they left, but just any identifiers that show who they specifically were. That makes sense.
Yeah, can I reclaim my time? And just sorry, follow-up question again. So it doesn't like specifically say anywhere that like, oh, any I like information that can be traced back to you will be redacted to the applicant. So it's like, I guess like the applicants themselves don't necessarily know that that happened, right? Like,
Yes, that's correct. So when you're filling out your application or when the applicant is filling it out, they don't know that it will be redacted. When they're filling out their things and then ask their positions and what they were in, they fill it in regularly and then later it's redacted. But they have no idea that some other stuff that's in their application will not be shown to people.
okay. Can I reclaim my time and make a motion? Can I motion to like amend this legislation to add a line that just says like applicants are notified that any information identifiable to them will be redacted, just so the applicants know and just don't include that information at a time?
Yeah, like point of information, like how do we go about doing that? Like we have to vote on the thing?
Second.
The process for that is quite literally a motion, second, any objections, no, and then you can make the corrections to it. If it is like a PDF, you might have to send it to co-staff, but yeah. And can you send the language of that line that you want added onto the amendment?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment on the doc, and then anybody, if you guys want to update the grammar or anything like that, you guys can change it.
Right. Are there any objections to that motion of making that one line change? No? All right. I guess we can make that amendment. Is there anyone else? Oh, I know Senator Etifag wanted to speak.
Sorry, yeah, I'm still a tiny bit confused. So let's say someone in a college council is like, I was this position in a college council, would that be considered identifiable information and would that be redacted?
I think to my understanding, it would just say like, I served in a college council, but it wouldn't say like your role, what you did, like what your title was. But it'll be like, I was in a college council and I did this, as in like, I conducted this event and I saw this, but not like I was, I don't, does that make sense?
Yeah, so just to clarify, it'll be like, oh, I served in, let's say, ERC student council. It won't say the title, but like in whatever role I did this, I did X, Y, and Z. I served on council, I organized events, including, and you can get like specific information about that. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I yield back.
Are there any more questions about this constitutional amendment? Yeah.
I do want to say though that it seems from our language and from Senator Rodriguez's point that like that also would be up to the discretion of the CPO. So if they like that's not written in the language that they have to like include that they were in a college council, like they could just strike it as a whole, if that makes sense. So if that wants to be amended as well.
Are there any other questions? Senator Etefan, and also, do we have like an estimate of like how long it'll take for us to make that amendment? Okay, awesome. Yes, Senator Etefag, I'm so sorry for interrupting you.
No, you're good. So sorry, would Senator about these, but so it's up to the discretion of the CPO if they want to, so they can strike that according to this legislation.
Yeah, because right now it just says ensuring that personally identified information is maintained confidential by the CPO. So whatever they identify, to what extent as personally identifiable information is what they'll redact.
I would propose, I don't know, I would propose, I guess, having it so that not necessarily like the CPO could like rephrase it in a way instead of like just completely redacting it in order to give some idea of past experience. They do think that's important. Would that be possible?
So can you like, yeah, like how would you want the language to look?
I guess, sorry, like the CPO shall like try the best to their ability um, to like maintain all relevant information while like redacting any personal identifying information. So like relevant as in like previous experience, but like personal identifier as like title, etc. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, if you want to go to the live version that's in the Slack channel and like riff your language in there and where you'd want it so we can all look at it.
Yeah.
We're gonna wait to vote on this or start a vote on this after we make those changes to the legislation that Senator Bautista has sponsored. So once we finish making those changes, we can close discussion to move to a vote if that's what senators. Are there any additional changes that senators want to make to this legislation?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just like confused where would I want to put my art. Sorry.
I mean, that's kind of up to you.
Sorry, like I've never done this before.
No, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah, point of information. So this was originally because this is not going to be happening during this hiring cycle. There would be like no like harm, I guess, in tabling it till next week. So
Point of information, if you table it, it doesn't have to go through ledge again, right? Okay. Yeah, that's chill. I mean, yeah, it's not taking place anytime soon.
I moved
Just
to
before the end of the year is my thing.
move to table till next Senate.
Is there a second? Are there any objections? No? All right. We'll be tabling it to next Senate then. Um, now that now that we're finished with new business, we'll be moving on to announcements. Are there any announcements before we move to a final roll call? Yes, Senator Tangang.
Thank you. Just a reminder for everyone, I do want to try to get that resolution through as soon as possible. So if you are able to make sure to pass that on, propose it to your college councils and let me know when that gets passed. Preferably, it can get done before next week's Senate so that we're safely within like May, because I don't want to do it like too far out. That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much. I yield back to the floor.
Any other announcements? Yes, clerk.
Hi, Senate. Two things. One, thank you and shout out to those who attended the public interviews today and those who are taking part of the interview process. Attendance was kind of low from this group and from the AVPs. So for future public interviews, I definitely encourage folks to attend and engage and ask questions of the AVPs that will be going through the public interview process, and just special shout out to the group that coordinated everything. Also, with the open roll call vote, we'll send out an email with that information. Reminder to those who are here, if you have friends in Senate, that it still requires a 3/4 vote. So just keep that in mind. Tell your friends, tell your fellow senators that just because the vote didn't get completed today, for a mandate reserves pool, 3/4 is required. And that's all. Thank you.
Right. Any other announcements? Yes, Senator Etifog.
Sorry, yeah, quick announcement. Ellie's Garden, as well as other gardens across campus, are coordinating an event with the AS Office of Local Affairs that I believe deserves recognition from the Senate. I highly encourage all of you guys to go participate in this event, as you're really highlighting the amazing gardens and free produce too sometimes, which is really great. So I highly recommend you guys check that out and stop by. Thank you. The date and time, yes. So the gardens have different. There's like 4 gardens they're doing it with. The date and times can all be found on the AS local Instagram account.
Thank you so much. Are there any other announcements? Last call. Yippee. All right. So we have now concluded today's business. May I have the clerk conduct a final roll call?
Helena Padilla Macias, Lisbeth Diaz, Wuyi Haradi, Alex Lujan, Davina Madan, here, Ruby Garcia, Ashlyn Batista, Daniel Perez, Jennifer Ruiz, Christina Rodriguez,
Roger that, y'all.
Rachel Alarcon, Katie Johnson.
Night.
Sadiq Fakir,
Here.
Nelly Zapata Castillo, Faisal Khoury,
Good night.
Daniel Fatengang, Cameron Edifa,
Thank you.
Minju Kim,
Good night.
Zaid Azam,
Good night.
Sam Helvig,
Thank you.
Emrusa Velavelli, Avantika Ramasamy, Jonah Kravitz,
Thank you.
Leslie Vallejo Avila, Shanna Hong,
Good night, chat.
Rishi Alamarty, Eduardo Tapia Jr. Bieta, Jacob Pong, Denisha McCadney, William Maheen.
Good night.